let this be.
Welcome to another episode. Welcome to another episode of Gamecocks Talk with Captain Will. I am your man, Captain Will. Make sure you like, make sure you share, make sure that you subscribe to Gamecocks Talk with Captain Will so I continue to bring you that gospel of Gamecocks every single day. Follow me on Twitter. If you see it below, follow me on Twitter at Gamecocks Talk. Follow me on Instagram at Gamecocks Talk with Captain Will. And wherever you get your podcast, you can find your man, Captain Will. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate all the love. Thank you. We got to go today, y'all. I said we got to go in today, y'all. South Carolina women's basketball is a dynasty, but it didn't always start that way. Revisionist history. Sometimes we only go back a little ways. You know, people got short memories of where Carolina came from. You know, we weren't always winning national champions. We weren't always winning SEC titles. We weren't always going to the tournament. We weren't always winning 20 games. There were times where we were not a very good basketball team. But the rise of the South Carolina women's basketball team, the three-time national champions, and became a dominant force in women's basketball, in college basketball, in basketball in general, and in the sport. Okay? We, as a South Carolina women's basketball team, as fans, can reach out far across the world and see the imprints of this brand now that we call South Carolina women's basketball. The legacy began from humble beginnings. Let's just say it right there. There was some early years of struggle for this basketball team. Now, I'm not going to talk about, you know, back in the 1920s and 30s and all that stuff like that. I'm going to talk about when they actually became a varsity sport. Let's start there. South Carolina became a varsity sport for women's basketball in 1974. Okay, and they had a nickname called the Carolina Chicks. Now, there's nowhere in hell that you can that would fly in this day and age in 2024, but that was the name, the Carolina Chicks. And then they adopted the moniker of the Lady Gamecocks in 1977. So I guess that was some growth from the Carolina Chicks to the Lady Gamecocks. And we had 4 head coaches from 1974 to 1984. And that record was 199 and 127 in that span. Nancy Wilson took over in 1984 and went 231 and 49. She had the job from 1984 to 1996. She had success for the South Carolina women's basketball team. She went to the tournament 5 times. She got at the USC to 4 separate 20 wins seasons. Shout out to Nancy Wilson. It was the most wins by a South Carolina coach for 20 years. Okay, because there was a time that we went through the doldrums, if you will. Susan Walfus was hired as the coach. Okay, after Nancy Wilson left, she took over in 1997. She had 165 and 160 record through 2008. That wasn't too good. That wasn't too good at all. And in the early 2000s, right before a change happened, the Lady Gamecocks moniker went away. Okay, bye-bye. New era began, and y'all know who it was. Okay, head coach Dawn Staley entered the fray, and business immediately picked up for the South Carolina women's basketball program. The emergence of Dawn Staley being hired by South Carolina sent shockwaves across the women's basketball scene, because she came from Temple and brought Temple to a certain level, but she wanted more. So she joined a program in Carolina that wasn't doing well for some time, but the program was in the SEC. The program would have the opportunity to get a lot of eyeballs, and she saw the challenge. Let's take it like this right here. Before Dawn Staley took the job at USC, no SEC titles, no Final Fours, no national championships. Dawn Staley's in her 17th year at the University of South Carolina. She has 12 regular season titles, 12 SEC tournament titles, 6 Final Fours, 3 national champions. She's had 14 players drafted into the WNBA. 3 of those players were Rookie of the Year. One of those players is the best player on the planet Earth in A'ja Wilson. Unbelievable change for South Carolina. It wasn't immediate, though. It wasn't immediate. Wasn't. But it was steady. It took 3 seasons. It took 3 seasons for Carolina to get above 500. The cupboard was bare and of talent. So it took a while for Dawn to get her players and play her system her way. 3 years. Dawn Staley, South Carolina, reached 25 wins for the first time in 2012. Remember, she was hired in 2008. And the Gamecocks obviously went to the tournament for the first time since 2003. That's 9 years. Okay. South Carolina has not missed the tournament since 2002. That stat in itself is amazing. That stat in itself shows the trajectory, shows the consistency of this program and of Dawn Staley and the talent that has been at the University of South Carolina since she's been here. Do anyone see as long as Dawn Staley is here, a chance or opportunity or a possibility of us ever not going to the NCAA tournament? Ain't no in the world. No way. It's not even possible for that to occur. South Carolina is special. Okay. It's special. Okay. So anybody ever heard of A'ja Wilson? I might have heard her a couple times, a time or two. The arrival of A'ja Wilson to South Carolina, the having the #1 ranked player in the country stay home and play for the hometown team, play for Dawn Staley, changed so much in women's college basketball. What if A'ja Wilson went to UConn, went to Tennessee, Stanford, Notre Dame, any of those type teams? It would have been business as usual because Carolina had a history of great players within the state leaving the state. We've always had great players that played basketball in the state of South Carolina. Little itty bitty South Carolina would always produce dynamic players. A'ja Wilson deciding to stay at home at the crib set a blueprint for such players like MiLaysia Fulwiley, Joyce Edwards, Ashlyn Watkins, Talasia Cooper. So many different players have decided to stay at South Carolina, commit to the University of South Carolina because they want to play at home. They want to play in front of their friends and family. But A'ja Wilson, the #1 ranked player in the country, y'all, who could have went to any Division I school in the country, decided to stay home and play for head coach Dawn Staley. Next season, Carolina went 34-3. 34-3. Won the SEC again and went to the Final Four. Dawn Staley, A'ja Wilson brought home USC's first national championship in 2017. Dawn Staley got hired in 2008. Completely overhauled the team. Won a championship in 2017. Steady growth. Produced amazing talent. And that talent went to the WNBA. Became global icons in basketball. The continued dominance of Dawn Staley's leadership and development of a winning culture, and people throw around the word culture so often, and sometimes I don't think that people really recognize. I don't think people really, take into consideration how you can go from a losing culture where you are just completely used to losing, turn around 9 years later, you are holding up a national championship. How difficult that is. If that was easy, everybody 360 some Division I schools would be holding those championships. So hard, so difficult to do. The Dawn Staley did that. 2 years after that first championship, Dawn Staley brought in the #1 ranked recruiting class in the country, according to ESPN, and that recruiting class was nicknamed the Freshies. Okay, and multiple future draft picks. Aaliyah Boston, #1 overall pick, and that team in 2021 lost in the Final Four to Stanford. We all remember it. We all remember watching that game. We all remember because ESPN showed, Aaliyah Boston crying over and over and over again. I got tired of seeing that mess. What happened next year? Went 35-2 and won the national championship. The notion of punching up against South Carolina or trying to degrade South Carolina in some form or fashion, it has a direct correlation to a championship. The ridicule that was going on, talking about Aaliyah Boston missing that shot, Stanford winning the basketball game, was very similar to Raven Johnson getting waved off against Iowa, and in the next year going undefeated and winning the national championship against Iowa. The impact on this team success locally in the local community, and because the girls and the coaching staff does so much for the local Columbia. Dawn is always shouting out the media, the local media, of how well they do. And when you have a role, because Dawn is the celebrity in South Carolina, the state of South Carolina, she is the celebrity. And little girls, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 years old, want to play for Dawn Staley, want to put on the garnet in black, want to be a part of the process and of the success of South Carolina women's basketball. We've seen the videos, we've seen all the different things. And you are like laying the foundation. We've seen the old picture with Chloe Kitts taking a picture with Dawn Staley at a basketball camp of some sort. We've seen, multiple players. Joyce Edwards was hanging out Colonial Life Arena years ago. There are so many ties to players, current players, to Dawn Staley laying the footprint, putting in the groundwork for a potential player at South Carolina. It's amazing. It's amazing because you don't know who you're going to touch. You have no idea. As a person, as a leader, you have no idea who you're going to touch, who you're going to inspire. It could be basketball. It could be, any type of situation. And Dawn Staley is constantly inspiring everyone. Everyone. It's just awesome to see. The core of the dynasty that South Carolina has right now is in display in front of our eyes. It is coming off a championship last season, returning most of the players, staying focused, making the main thing, and trying to run this thing back, which is so difficult because of the parity of college basketball, the strength of the SEC in general. You get out of the SEC and you say you're the SEC champion, you've done some work. So many teams that are ranked in the SEC, and we have to run the gauntlet of that. The current roster is special. I said before the season started, I said, I made statements during the championship run of last season that this 2024-2025 season will be the best team that we've ever had. I said that. This team has the most talent than any other South Carolina team has ever had. This team has a gluttony of 5-star talent on it. Multiple players, 4 out of the 5 starters return. This team is special. And the core of this team is the heartbeat of this basketball team. I believe is Tahina Paopao. I believe she is the heartbeat of this basketball team. I believe she is the pulse, and the way Paopao goes, I believe this team will go. I believe that Raven Johnson is the energy, the engine, I should say, of this basketball team. I do. This team is stacked with talent. This team is stacked with experience and leadership, but also have players coming up who will eventually take those players' place. That's what you want. You want the next woman up. I want the next woman up approach to basketball, to sports. I do. I don't want players, because Carolina's different. So when everybody is so highly recruited, and not transferring out. The transfer portal for women's basketball is crazy. Now, Carolina's had a couple players who transferred out who weren't getting playing time, and now they're getting their playing time. Talasia Cooper, Anaya Russell, Sania Rivers. All those players are playing for their respective teams and getting ample playing time. We'll see Anaya Russell tomorrow versus, Mississippi State. But for the players that stay and actually really trust the process of what Dawn Staley is doing, you're not going to have Joyce Edwards was the third-ranked player in the country according to ESPN. You're not going to have a player like Joyce Edwards come in, although she's been balling her butt off, but she's not going to come in and I'm going to demand 35 minutes in a basketball game. That's not the Carolina way. Maddy McDaniel was a second-ranked point guard in the country. She's not going to do that. They're going to learn from the players before them who also were highly ranked players. Those are the facts of Carolina. We have strengths, we have weaknesses on this basketball team, but overall, this is still the best team in the country. Right now, Carolina would be favored to win the championship heavily. Check the odds. Carolina's favored by a large margin to win the championship, to cut down the nets once again in Florida. Nothing's really changed in that regard. The team will have challenges going forward. The team may lose a game or two. Like, Cap, you saying it's the best team ever assembled by South Carolina. You have chances, or you have times where the best team don't necessarily win that particular basketball game. We went undefeated last season. Was that the best team that Carolina has ever had because we won undefeated? That was a wonderful basketball team. But was it truly the best team we ever had? Because we won all the games. Undefeated status does not mean that you are the number one team in the history of ever. It means you won all the games in that season against the opponents that was, before you. Do I foresee Carolina losing a basketball game during the SEC? It's possible. It's very possible. It's very possible. Injuries can happen. A suspension can happen. Anything could happen. But I'd say we will be favored by at least 5 to 6 points against every team that we play in the SEC. We might have a terrible shooting night like we did against UCLA and lose the basketball game. It's possible. The coaching staff will address those challenges, and the leadership on the team will address those challenges and overcome them, just like any other challenge that's occurred to this basketball team. The future of this program and the potential for continued dominance is overwhelming. It's overwhelming. Do we have a number one ranked recruiting class this season? No, we don't. We don't whatsoever. We have one 5-star recruit in Adhel McDaniel. She's top 15 in the country. But she's going to fill a role for South Carolina. And the cool thing about it, Adhel McDaniel will not be needed next year. She won't. She's going to fill a roster spot, and she's going to play the wing position, and she's going to she's a wonderful defender, can score the basketball, and she's going to play a vital role for us next season, a vital bench role for us next season. And despite Powell leaving and Breezy leaving and Feagin leaving and Sakima leaving, the cupboard's not bare. It just means more opportunities for Tessa, more opportunities for Maddy, more opportunities for Joyce, more opportunities for Adhel. Then you just backfill those roster spots with a couple of transfers. couple of transfers. You can guarantee right now when the transfer portal opens after the season ends, Dawn Staley is going to get one of the better shooters to come to South Carolina. You're going to have somebody going to come in and play the Tahina Pow role that she has filled in, that has just dominated. It's going to happen. This is going to happen. It will just continue to just get better. The impact on this team's legacy on the sport of women's basketball and its influence for future generations is dynamic. You have so many girls playing the game of basketball now. I mean, it's crazy. You have women's college basketball more popular than men's college basketball. That's a fact. That is a fact. You have the unrivaled league, the 3-on-3 that's getting ready to start. You have the WNBA, the collective bargaining agreement. Who's going to really start getting paid in 2026 so our women don't have to go overseas to make that real money that they deserve. And South Carolina is in the forefront with all of that. You have so many great teams in women's college basketball, and with LSU and whose culture and NIL footprint and can be felt against the whole landscape. But don't forget now, South Carolina doing pretty good in NIL space, in college football and in basketball. There are a couple of recruits out there who hasn't signed yet. One of them is Aaliyah Chavez. Do I want South Carolina to pay $1 million for Aaliyah Chavez to come to South Carolina? I don't. But she hasn't decided yet where she's going to go. And Aaliyah Chavez to this basketball team to go along with the guards that we have right now would be unbelievable. Unbelievable. A God maker still has not made her decision of where she's going to play college basketball. It's a lot of different moving pieces right now for us. I said that we're not going to have a number one ranked recruiting class. I said that, right? But there's a possibility. I got Aaliyah Chavez going to Oklahoma. If Aaliyah Chavez chooses South Carolina, the scale has been broken. Okay, if a God maker decides to come to South Carolina and then mess around and have the number 1, number 4, number 14th ranked recruit in this recruiting class, things would change. The future is so bright. Continue to support this basketball team. Continue to go to the games. Continue to buy their merchandise. Some of the merchandise directly goes to the NIL piece and directly goes to some of the ladies' pockets. Waiting on my Raven Johnson jersey right now. Wife is waiting on her, MiLaysia Fulwiley jersey right now. And portions of that goes to NIL. The girls deserve everything that's coming to them. Much like, because I want the girls to always get what they deserve. Because I'm seeing a whole lot of money changing hands in college football. Transfers, getting this, promise that, blah, 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 NIL. We have the number one team in the country, and we've been the number one team in the country for the last 5 years. Give these ladies what they deserve. If you're not contributing to the Garnet Trust, if you're not contributing to this NIL piece, just consider it. Just think about it. That's the call to action today. Just consider it. Just consider it. Continued success is different in women's college basketball now. And sometimes we got to make an extra effort to keep some of these recruits keep some of these players to stay here and not go off to other teams. And NIL is changing the game. But one thing that has truly changed the game for South Carolina is the Dawn Staley. This concludes another episode of Gamecocks Talk with Captain Will. I am your man, Captain Will. Make sure you like, make sure you share, and make sure you subscribe to Gamecocks Talk with Captain Will so I continue to bring you that gospel of Gamecocks every single day. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you are now rocking with the best. And since you're rocking with the best, come rock with your man, Captain Will. Let's go. Let's go.
J-Rock did this